Hello guys, my name is Danilo, and today we are going to talk about dinosaurs. Not these dinosaurs, these ones. I'm sure each of you have seen them in toy stores, but did you ever think how they were made? And did you know that you can make the same dinosaur at home with your own hands? This is what I'm going to tell you today. So let's get started. I was doing sculpture for the last 15 years and I can tell you a lot about it. Every sculpture starts from the research. You need to know who or what are you going to make. I decided to make an Allosaurus. This was a huge land predator that lived in late Jurassic about 150 million years ago. Visually he looks a little bit similar to popular Tyrannosaurus rex, but this guy lived much later in the end of Cretaceous period. Name Allosaurus came from Greek and means strange lizard. He reached about 9 meters long, 3.5 meters high and up to 3 tons weight. This is noticeably smaller than T-Rex, however, Allosaurus was much faster. By the latest calculations, he could reach the speed up to 34 miles per hour. This means that you would have no chance to escape from him. On the top of his head, he had 2 small horns that was probably used for demonstrations, like a cock's comb. Also, he had oh, wait guys, I think I went too far from our main topic, so let's go back to sculpture. I've printed some pictures of Allosaurus to use it as a guide, but before starting the sculpture we need to decide which material to use. There is a lot of different materials for sculptures, so it shouldn't be a problem, right? Unfortunately, it's not so obvious as you can think. For example, all types of clay that dry in the air is not going to work for us. Why? Because sculpture of such a detailed figurine can take weeks and even months, so you simply don't have enough time to finish it until it will completely dry. The same thing is all other air-drying materials. What about plasticine? Plasticine don't have this limitation and it's much more comfortable and reliable in hands, so it could be a good choice. But there is another issue, it is soft, and there is no way you can make it hard after finishing your sculpture. At least I don't know any. If you know, please tell me. Because of this, plasticine is also not the best choice for our sculpture. We need to find a compromise, and this compromise is polymer clay. It is not air drying, but at the same time you can make it hard by baking in the oven. This is very useful because you don't have any time limitation and you can bake it anytime you need. So this is our choice. Usually sculptors are making some sketches before starting doing their project, but I don't really like drawing, so I prefer to make a testing sculpture in plasticine, without any details, just to understand the shape, size and body position of the figurine. After finishing sculpture in plasticine, we can see approximate size and position of our future figurine, and how much clay we'll need. Now we can start making a skeleton from wires. The skeleton is a very important part of sculpture because it helps to make sculpture more stable and avoid from breaking the most thin and weak parts. Also, I'm covering the skeleton with aluminium foil to save some clay. After that, we can start working with the polymer clay. I personally use the clay from brand Fimo. It's not an advert, they did not pay me anything, I just like their products and can highly recommend it. Polymer clay is a little bit softer than plasticine and other materials, so I'll use the partial baking technique. This means that firstly you are making a basic layer of clay and baking it. Then you are gaining weight with the second layer clay and make all the details like muscles, skin texture, scales, eyes, teeth and everything else. Why do you need this and why not to do it in one layer with all the details and then just bake it? Because, as I said, polymer clay are very soft and your sculpture will be very unstable. You can easily damage one side when you are doing another side. By using a technique of partial baking, you will make your sculpture much more stable and it will help to avoid these issues. Also, sometimes I'm baking my sculpture during the process of detailing to avoid damaging the parts that I have already done. I used to start the process of detailing from the head, as the most complicated part. By making the shape of the head, I'm trying to represent my testing model, but this time I'm adding some details like eyes, wrinkles, scars. Next step is teeth. We need to make about 100 small tiny teeth and then bake them. Then we need to install all these teeth into the jaws. This teeth is so small that I cannot take it by hands, so I'm going to use the tweezers. I'm trying to make the teeth crooked and uneven to make it look more realistic because obviously there was no dentist at the time. Interesting fact, unlike mammals, which only have 2 sets of teeth, predator dinosaurs, including Allosaurus, had an unlimited set of teeth and was replacing them during the whole life. which means they could not be afraid of breaking them in a fight. Now guys, be patient, because we are ready to start the longest part of the whole sculpture, making a skin texture. The only tool I need is an ordinary needle. In my sculpture I decided to carve the body of Allosaurus with small and medium-sized scales, and make each scale by hand. This is definitely not the easiest way, but I choose it because it helps to make each scale unique, so it will look more natural. After finishing with the head, I recommend to baking it in the oven, to make sure that you will not damage it later. But be careful when you are baking it. If you are using clay from barren femur, you need to bake it no longer than 30 minutes with a temperature of 120 degrees, and never, listen me, never leave it without watching. Otherwise you can just burn it, as it happened to me once, and I was need to completely redo all my work. That took me almost 2 weeks, so guys, learn from my mistakes and always pay attention when you are baking your figurines. After baking the head, I can start working with the neck. The same as head, I'm covering the neck with a thin layer of clay and then making all the details. This is a really long process and you'll need to have a lot of patterns. On the video it can look fast, but in reality it can take weeks and even months to complete it. Also, if you want to a little bit speed up the process, you can use special tools. But I prefer to make each scale by hands, because then it will look more natural. Now, during the process of detailing, we can have some free time to talk more about this dinosaur. Allosaurus was discovered in 1877 and it is one of the most well-studied dinosaurs. He lived in the Morrison Formation with such popular dinosaurs as Stegosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus and Ceratosaurus. Allosaurus was armed with a big, almost 1 meter long jaws full of sharp teeth. However, his bite force was surprisingly weak. By some old calculations, it was even weaker than the lion, even though the Allosaurus was 10 times bigger. That calculations was very controversial, and by new study his bite force was much stronger, but still not even close as strong as the bite force of T-Rex. This can be explained by a different hunting technique. Allosaurus had a very sharp teeth with the saw-tooth edges, and it was designed to slice the meat rather than break bones as a T-Rex. Also, the jaws of Allosaurus could open at a very big angle, about 90 degrees, and that was very useful for hunting giant sauropods, as Diplodocus and Camarasaurus. Another dangerous weapon of the Allosaurus was strong hands, with 3 giant claws on each hand. It was very similar to the claws of current-day eagles. Allosaurus was a great and very universal hunter. He could hunt on any herbivores in his ecosystem, including small and fast Brachiosaurus, heavily armed Stegosaurus, and giant sauropods. Late Jurassic was a horrible time, and Allosaurus was dividing his territory with such dangerous predators as Ceratosaurus, Torvosaurus, and Saurophaganax. Such a tough competition made him one of the most dangerous and powerful hunters in the history of the planet. But even this didn't save him from extinction that happened about 145 million years ago. Well guys, we are finally done. It was a really hard project and I'm really happy with the result. Of course, it's not completed yet. The next step is to make a silicone mold and cast replicas in epoxy resin. But I think it's too much for today, so I'll make a second part where I will show all this. This is all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and see you. Such a tough competition made past. But I prefer to make it with my head. But I prefer to make my. That was very useful for. That was very useful for. Now guys, be patient, because we are. Now guys. It helps to make sculpture more stable and prevent from breaking the most thin and weak parts. There is the same thing is the same thing is all our the same After because sculpture of such a detailed figurine, no. Why do I need to speak in English? My English is terrible. I hate it. And this tease was designed to slice.